Okay, so I think we're probably good to get started if everybody has their breakdown ready or they're just here to listen. That's good too. You can always send us a message at any point if you're not sure where we are or if you happen to join late. Message anytime. But the beginning, so page one, we're starting with the recap because every episode we've been watching, we've been starting with the recap. So we have the previously on where Rue reminded everybody that they'll be hosting their very own talk show. So the guests were Georgia Holt and Chaz Bono, so Cher's mom and son. So it was very exciting. Some queens were a little bit more excited than others, like Courtney Act, who was freaking out about being 1 degree of separation from Cher. And it really was Courtney Act in her element while she was interviewing. There were other queens that struggled though. So we had Adore struggling, like she was asking Georgia about her childhood, where Georgia responded, "No, honey, we were broke, and it was during the Depression." And Adore had her usual, like, "that's so cool" party phrases, which didn't really go over so well. And we also saw that another queen that struggled was Trinity. She fumbled a lot and kept calling Chaz Chad, which is a big no when you're interviewing somebody. You really need to have their names right. Now, this, I didn't include the Untucked breakdown in the PDF document, but a lot of the same discussions were had in the Untucked episode where Adore and Trinity knew that they were going to be in the bottom and they felt really bad about their mistakes during the interview. The winner, probably to no surprise, because I believe she really was the strongest in the episode, was Courtney Act. She had a killer appearance in the talk show and a truly beautiful runway look. Those wings, iconic. The lip sync was really emotional, very powerful, but ultimately, Rue made the decision that Adore was to stay, and Trinity had to, unfortunately, sashay away. So to start the episode, the queens return to the workroom after Trinity's elimination. We see Trinity's message in lipstick, the "Be cool, be nice, be you, XOXO TKB." So Adore was really in her emotions. She had to remove Trinity's message from the mirror, and she was really angry with herself because she was really struggling with her confidence after being in the bottom and not performing well. Like, she really felt like she let herself and Cher down, because she mentioned that in Untucked as well, that she was like terrified that somebody was going to go back and tell Cher how terrible she was, and so was Jocelyn for that matter, because of just how kind of uncomfortable they made Cher's mom and son feel. So, but Courtney Act was applauded for how she turned it out, and she was thrilled. Since she has this moment where she jokes with Bianca, where she says that she wants to have a talk show when she grows up, and that she'll let Bianca be her Michelle Visage. And Bianca jokes that her titties aren't big enough. So it's fun. They have a nice little lighthearted moment. It's very just there's not a lot of drama going on with them. They're in a really good mood. Courtney's having like a great time. But in the words of Gia Gunn, she's feeling her oats. Like, she truly feels seen by the judges and feels that she was rewarded appropriately for her talent. And she feels herself getting a little bit more competitive. And that competitive side is really coming out, because she decides to kind of poke at, of course, it had to be Bianca, a little bit further, noting that there are only 2 queens left in the competition who have yet to lip sync. That would be Courtney Act herself and Bianca. So Courtney suggests a dance challenge because there's just no way that Bianca wouldn't be in the bottom for a challenge like that. Well, Bianca doesn't take too kindly to this. Bianca notes that Courtney can come off as rather grand and unlikable at times. She probably shouldn't be a blonde every time she's out there, Bianca throws out in her confessional. She probably shouldn't look so naked all the time. We all know she's pretty. Give us something else. I think there was wasn't there a few other quotes, Regina, that
Yeah.
Bianca threw out?
So I could read the whole thing. So Courtney states, "How about next week we have a dance challenge, and then Bianca can lip sync, and I'll be the one left standing." And so then, to which Bianca replies, "Oh, are these threats you're making, little Ava Perón, who looks like a sad bird?" And then she says, "You fucking bitch." Pardon the language. Um, Bianca then remarks in her confessional, "I think Courtney can sometimes come across as unlikable or grand. She probably shouldn't be a blonde every time she goes out there. She probably shouldn't look so naked all the time. It does get a little monotonous. They want to see versatility. We all know she's pretty. Give us something else." That was the full confessional. So yeah, basically it's the nail on the head.
Oh, can I chime in for just a second?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it actually had never dawned on me until you just said that. I just didn't even think about the fact that they get to choose their wigs. And I forget that, like, that's not actually Courtney's real hair, and she can totally change that up if she wants, and she doesn't. She keeps it totally like, I'm the hot blonde girl, like, always. And I had not thought about that. Sorry, I've got Josie with me. I can keep it.
I thought I could feel you like cringing at Bianca saying someone else wasn't likable. John's like
No, I
cringing at
mean,
Bianca.
I would love to have seen that exchange so that I can add it to all of the, the other thoughts that I have swimming around in my mind about Bianca, and why I'm just not feeling her. But I'm just more I was just that was just a moment of, like, realization about Courtney that I hadn't really thought about when you mentioned it, which is that it's true. Like, Bianca has been a redhead. She's been, now this last one, she's like has this black hair, and I never really put much thought into the fact that, like, yeah, that's not their real hair, like, they don't have that hair, so they can do whatever they want with it, and you can, like, define yourself as one thing, which it's so clear that Courtney has defined herself as one thing. I am this, and I just change up the costume that I'm wearing, but my drag persona is only only really one specific person that has one specific hair quality, and I just change that, like, I style that, and I just never really thought about, like, well, that's not super versatile. Like, like, yeah, like, I would kind of like to see Courtney with dark hair, or with, like, or with, like, red hair or something. I'd like to see her change. The most that we've seen was that little swimming cap moment, but that doesn't really count, because I can just imagine that she has blonde hair underneath that swimming cap. I don't know. Am I making any sense? I don't know.
No,
Yeah, you are.
absolutely. I
Absolutely.
think there's some queens throughout the history of this show that really come on and they have their really set image, and sometimes it's really true with the wigs, and I feel like some of the more standard shades, so like if someone's standard shade was blonde or brown, then it's not really picked up or noticed as much. Is it the following season? It's because I was just thinking about this, there's a queen that gets called out for wearing gray wigs, because it's like, okay, we want to see something different, and it's kind of because it's more obvious that it's something more unusual than something like blonde, which is just sort of the Courtney act, like, brand is to be like
Right.
blonde model Barbie type.
Exactly. And I just think that's interesting because I had not even really thought about that. That's like the first time that the idea has even dawned on me, and until you said it, that it's like that she's sort of keeping all of her different looks all inside the Courtney Act brand. And Bianca is actually she's actually like kind of breaking out, like breaking that brand a bit, like trying to, doing different things, which is in itself its own kind of brand, is but no, just interesting. Just, I don't know.
So after that exchange with Bianca and Courtney, we move into the introduction for the episode where Rue introduces our two very extra special guest judges. We have David Burtka and Neil Patrick Harris. So in the document, I just included some pictures of them together and their beautiful family. And I thought it was very appropriate that they were the judges for this episode with this theme. So it's a new day in the workroom, and in come the queens. And Darian mentions that one slip up could send you home. And so she says, I'll be leaving banana peels everywhere.
That one was my
Very
favorite.
daring.
It was so funny. And I immediately thought of like Mario Kart. So they're wondering what's going to happen next. Darian suggests maybe it's magic. They haven't had to do a challenge like that yet. And on the topic of magic, Courtney tells a story about being a magician's assistant and being crammed into a tiny box. Regina, I don't know if you happen to have this exchange because I thought it was hilarious.
I do not. I have the full video message that RuPaul gives, but essentially, I watched this like 3,000 times already. But essentially, Courtney Act says like, oh, like I was so contortioned into this tiny little box that my right testicle like popped out, and then Ben de la Creme says, what were you doing with a rat testicle? And then Courtney kind of looks at her and says, my right testicle, with like her Australian accent. Then the ooh girl, like that sort of alarm that rings after the video message that Rue leaves for the queens comes on. They all move towards the monitor and they watch the full message. But that's essentially the the whole conversation.
I thought it was so silly, just like how seriously Dela was like, why do you have a rat testicle? Like, what?
And like
So
Courtney
bizarre.
had to just give it a minute, like, my right testicle. It was so good.
You said you have the full video message from Rue for
I did transcribe that. So Rue says, dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the presence of yes God. Say I do, and I just might pronounce you America's next drag superstar. You may now kiss the mother-tucking bride.
And in comes RuPaul. Hello, hello, hello. It's mini challenge time. So, for today's mini challenge, Ru is commissioning a series of abstract paintings in honor of marriage equality. And Ru's calling this collection Everybody Say Love. So everyone is very excited and happy about this topic. Then Rue calls in the Scruff Pit Crew. And I don't know why they started doing like Regina, like the woof woof woof.
Oh yeah,
I feel like we
when
all
the
kind of
scruff pit crew comes in,
crew.
woof, woof.
It's so
Yeah.
awkward. You can see like some of them are just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But in come the mostly naked men. They come on in and they are bringing in the bodysuits that the queens need to wear in order to get covered in paint. So they need to paint a twerk of art. There's a lot of really punny art references here, where Ruth says that they need to shake your Picasso, which Darian replies, I'm going to shake my Monet maker. Yes. And on your mark, get set, Van Gogh. So the Queen's
Darian is just the
Darian's sharp.
She's the sharpest, absolute sharpest. I think that in another version of this series or this season, Darian ends up being like the show favorite. I just think that they're not giving Darian the kind of screen time that we need in order to like. Because I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think that Darian's going to win this season or even be in the finals, but I think that she should.
She's really so clever and so quick, and I love all the little references we get. And the more I rewatch this, the more I catch them. This rewatch has been really helpful for that as well. I've been loving Darian so much. So the queens are getting into their quick drag as they're awkwardly trying to pad their bodysuits, where Darian once again asks if Jocelyn has 8 bikinis that she can borrow, which I thought was really hilarious. But then they come into the room. So as I show in the document, you can see that they have like their big canvases on the floor with all of their little buckets of paint. So it's also, I tried to get an image of it, but I couldn't get it quite because Rue's like above them looking down. It's just such an odd visual of them on the ground and Rue on this, like, I don't even know what the name of the machine would be, just looking down on them. But he's like, all right, ladies, start relying on that body, because they literally have to use their full bodies to make this. And this is just absolute chaos. Just absolute chaos. There's music playing, and they are jumping all over their canvases. Paint is splattering everywhere. Everywhere. So that kind of goes on for a little while until Rue calls it off and wants to hear about everyone's twerk of art. So Jocelyn is first. As she explained, there's a heart and it has sunglasses because she's wearing sunglasses because love's blind. Apparently, that was Jocelyn's explanation. Ben de la Creme decided that this piece was called It's Always Darkest Before the Dawn. I also kind of got Laganja vibes in this look with like the hat thing that Dela has on and like the big earrings. Reminds me of when Laganja had the big headpiece on when she was like walking around the workroom and Bianca was making fun of her for the wearing the head thing and like a crop top. Adore kind of rambled a little bit and was trying to explain what her art piece meant, but really clearly didn't have a single clue what she was saying. And basically just ended with its chaos, which was the most appropriate thing to say. And I think it really sums up the entire challenge. Darian brought up happy little trees and the birds and the bees.
Nice.
And there was a lot of confused expressions, but people just kind of nodding like, okay, all right, we'll go along with this, Darian, because it's you. And then Bianca went serious and explained how the purple columns were government and one is society, and in the middle the heart is growing and becoming whole, and she had a very like presidential response to what her piece of art meant. And Courtney talked about a man and a woman coming together as one, which Bianca said, I don't see it. And there was a lot of Bianca picking at Courtney during this moment. I really think the Bianca and Courtney rivalry is picking up here. I wonder if maybe Bianca feels a little bit threatened by Courtney. part, maybe. I don't know what anybody else thinks. Because Bianca and Courtney have Bianca's kind of shady with everybody. But because at the beginning of this episode, like we saw Courtney kind of a little bit smug, and now Courtney's won 2 challenges. So she's feeling pretty good about herself. So I wonder if maybe Bianca feels a little threatened.
I think it's funny that all their pieces look like kids making peanut butter jelly sandwiches on the ground. Like, I don't know how anyone saw anything.
I don't know. For me, like watching the episode, I felt like it's probably the other way around. Courtney is a little bit intimidated by Bianca because it feels like a lot of the stuff that's said, and we'll dive deeper into the other stuff that she says to the other queens within the episode. But I think Courtney is the one who starts off that conversation that we reviewed in the beginning after Trinity's elimination. The one about, oh, it's only just 2 queens who are left to lip sync, like Bianca's just minding her own business, like wiping away the makeup that she had on her arms for her animalistic inspired look. She's just minding her own business at the table, and it's really Courtney and the other queens that are kind of egging Courtney on in that exchange.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think it's the other way around.
But in this moment, like, we didn't see, at least we didn't see anybody else interrupt any of the other queens to like joke about what they had done, but Bianca did it with Courtney. So it was almost like to me it felt like Bianca's like, oh, I remember when you were picking on me earlier, bitch. Don't try me. Like I'm gonna get in my jokes on you and kind of keep picking on you because Courtney was just coming off of a high from just winning. That was just my opinion anyway. But they said that Courtney looked like she was going to a sports game because one side of her face is yellow and the other side is purple. And then there was a funny reference where Root kind of directed to Courtney saying, stop relying on that Botticelli. So the winner of the mini challenges, does anybody have any guesses?
Dela.
One vote for Dela. Anybody else have any thoughts?
No.
Hunter was like, "This is a mess."
No thoughts. Children's artwork. Everybody loses.
It'd be a horrible judge.
Well, can you answer me one thing? When anybody was explaining their piece, did they ever at any point go to like a soft piano music?
I hope so.
I'm asking Regina and Al, do you remember when anyone was explaining their piece at all, like going to it, did at any point in it did the music just like kind of turn to like a solo soft little piano?
You could wait. Hold on. I'm like rewinding through the.
I know. I'm gonna think. I'm like, oh my god, I can't remember. I should have noted the music.
Let me. So Bianca's
because
explaining her piece
that's
now.
very
Hold on,
important.
let me play this.
Because that's very important. If I had been watching the episode and anyone
Yeah.
had like some little piano solo played behind their thing as they were speaking, then I'd be like, oh, that person won won the challenge.
I hope it's for Darian for the Happy Little Trees. You know what? Darian's my vote for Happy Little Trees. Anytime anyone makes a Bob Ross like reference,
I think the music changes with each queen. So yeah, I can't really say. It's just like some generic music that you just hear in the background when each queen is describing their artwork.
So
Which
something
makes
more
sense.
like
They just drone on about it.
There's something like kind of peppy like that.
Hold on. Let me.
you've broken the code, John. You figured out
Sorry.
you figured out who wins.
I need answers. So you can't expect me to give a good, solid prediction without the information. Not how I work.
Why do I feel like I was like, damn it, I should have included that in this 83-page document.
I know. I was just thinking, I should have noted the music. I don't have to like transcribe the music notes.
I would like music theory.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this document's missing.
Oh my god, no.
Well, definitely if somebody had like an interview segment where they told us something, you know, kind of personal and deep from their life, I need to know if there was piano music that played behind it. That, like, if you don't have that information, I don't have all the information that I need in order to form an opinion about this person. I am kidding, of course. You do not need to
Are
find
you
the
listening?
music.
Are you listening to
You
it,
do not
Regina?
need to find the music. I'm just kidding. My Dela is my
Any other voters?
Okay, so drum roll. It's Bianca Del Rio.
Oh, okay.
You got to be kidding me. Really?
She did have the classical music in the.
Did she
I
really?
don't know if you heard it because I did play it when I was unmuted.
Are you
You
kidding me? She
cracked
had
it,
classical
John.
She had
music
the
on
classical
hers?
music.
Wait a
I don't know
second.
if you
That's
wanna-
unfair. I get that. I get that. Give me that one. I get that. I would have picked Bianca if you had told me that there was classical music behind her. Do I get that one?
Yeah, you get that one.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's pity points though, but yeah, you, you get it.
I'll take pity points. I don't care. I have no shame.
Okay, so suddenly we are back in the workroom, and now Rue is explaining the Maxi Challenge. So, love is in the air, and Rue wants the queens to meet some truly special women. So, in come 6 lovely ladies who are going to be married by Minister RuPaul. So, let's meet them. We've got Anna, Eddie, Brittany, Amy D, Dawn, and Amy S. And the queens are beginning to figure out what this week is all about. This is the Makeover Challenge, which is a staple challenge in the Drag Race universe. Bianca won the mini challenge, and her reward is getting to pair up the queens with the ladies. So Bianca looks absolutely thrilled, and the other queens look absolutely terrified. How will Bianca decide who goes with who? I mean, this is an easy way to sabotage if you really want to. And it's been seen in the show. Sometimes when with great power comes great responsibility, and sometimes that great responsibility is wasted. And sometimes we see some train wrecks of performances because queens weren't given the roles that suited them, or makeover partners that suited them. But in this case, Bianca picks Brittany for Jocelyn because she likes her accessories. So Brittany had the lovely earrings and the necklaces. Bianca keeps Eddie for herself, and because Bianca says that she seems sassy, so she's happy with that. Amy for Adore, with no real explanation, but just thinks that they would fit well together. Dawn goes with Courtney, pretty much because she's blonde, as that's exactly what Bianca says. So it's funny that John mentioned that about Courtney always being blonde. And for Darian, Bianca paired her with Anna, who has the cool, colorful hair. And finally, for Bendela, it is the other Amy. And I think that the pairings really made sense. The competitors are matched with women who at least kind of match some sort of style or a vague physical resemblance. So it doesn't seem like Bianca was trying to sabotage anybody. But
Can I ask a question? I'm having a hard time visualizing. You're saying men's names and women's names. Are they all women, are they all men? Are they a mix of men and women? Are they men in drag? I'm trying to just imagine what I'm looking at.
So these are all women.
Oh, they're all women. Like
Yeah.
Eddie is a woman.
Yes.
I think was it Eddie or Edie?
No, they said Eddie in the
That's
episode.
weird.
Yeah, they
Okay.
said
Because I totally read
And
that as Edie.
Dawn is like Donna.
Dawn, like Dawn.
Oh, Dawn.
Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, Dawn. Okay, so all women. They're all women. Got it. Okay, great.
And so they have materials ready for them. So we see lots of shots of white shoes and white fabric and lots of sequins and sparkles. So they have lots of things provided for them. They have the regular fabric wall as well, and of course they can use their own drag. So seems like they're almost ready to go. But before they can begin to plan their perfect weddings, Rue needs to introduce the grooms. And Rue looks really suspicious during this section. Because for this week's main challenge, the queens won't be making over the women. Yeah, realization begins to sink in as a few of the queens realize that instead of putting women into female drag, they are going to be transforming the men into the brides because the women are going to be the grooms.
Do they
Really
have
quick
to make the
question.
women into the grooms?
They have, well, the women are just basically going to be wearing suits, so they don't have to do anything with the women. They're just going to be transforming the men into drag brides.
And the couples knew this ahead of time, correct?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
And these people are all couples. So there's a woman and a corresponding man that's going to be made over. Those two people came onto the show as a couple.
Yes.
Will this
So
be their official wedding or like
what,
a you know what I mean? Like, are they gonna have like an actual wedding after this, or this is gonna be like their wedding?
I was going to include this at the end, but I guess I'll say it now. Like the magic of reality TV, none of it's really real. So they were all married before this ever happened.
Okay, all right.
So this is like a true fake wedding.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm with.
But they're acting like they're getting married for the first time.
I love
on
how
stage in
I
the
love
show.
how Hunter is she's like, no, that would not, like, they better have known ahead of time because do not ruin somebody's wedding that way.
Well, I'm thinking like, I mean, because obviously you said there's a lawsuit after this, but I'm thinking like a lawyer. I'd be like, okay, I need to know these questions beforehand. So
Those are
just for
definitely
legal
lawyer
purpose.
type questions. Absolutely. I picked up what you were putting down, Hunter.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. I knew where you were going.
Yeah, that law school is not wasted. Thank you.
I can read what RuPaul said because I did transcribe what RuPaul said. So I made in my notes. I said the gag is the queens will not be making over the brides; they will be making over the grooms into blushing brides. So RuPaul says, now for this week's main challenge, you won't be making over these women. No, that'd be too easy. Instead, you'll use the magic of drag to transform these grooms into blushing brides. And then he sings a la White Wedding by Billy Idol. It's a nice day for a drag wedding. And then he says, now, ladies, we're going to be looking for a strong family resemblance. Note that for the future when we get to the looks, a strong family resemblance. You'll use materials from Fabric Planet and your own drag. As drag mothers of the bride, I want you to use your charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent to make their wedding the most important day of their life. But to do that, first you need to meet the grooms. And then that's when we meet the grooms and then go from there.
So the queens aren't really too happy with this plot twist. But Rue has his gentlemen, start your engines and may the best woman, or in this case, bride, win. Adore is ready to give in immediately. Immediately. She doesn't do other people's makeup. She doesn't design. She doesn't sew. And she is beyond over it. Now, before they can really get started with...
Can you give me a little picture of what that looks like? Is she near tears? Does she kind of go in the corner? Are other people coming to console her? Is she just pissed? Yes.
Well, we see Adore standing next to her couple with really like her head in her hands. She's dismayed. Like, she's obviously very distraught. Like, her couple keeps looking at her like, "Are you okay? Are you, like, do you need something?" And then, like, I think you see on their faces that they're concerned.
Yeah.
Because Adore is visibly freaking out. And then we see it in her confessionals, because it cuts to like her little talking head confessionals where she's out of drag, and it's talking about how like she's so over it, and she's very upset in those as well.
Got it.
So next we get to see the queens meeting with their couples to discuss sort of their vision for the wedding, what kind of like aesthetic, what sort of vibe they're hoping for. First we have Bianca with Eddie and Kevin, and I think it's Kevin. Was it Kevin or Alex? Regina, I'm not sure if I have the name right.
Okay, hold on. So who are we
Bianca's partner. I know I had a hard time because, interestingly enough, in the episode, they really don't mention the men very much. Like, we had the big introduction where like the women were brought out and introduced by name, and then the men come in with no fanfare. And we don't really...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's
the
so
only way
strange.
that you'll catch the man's names is if you see them and they're talking with the queen that they've been assigned to. So Bianca did have Alex. Yes,
Okay.
Alex. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was Alex. And so Alex and Eddie are talking. And I mean, Bianca, you have to remember too, Bianca's a costume designer. Bianca has done people's makeup before, and she's very comfortable in this situation. So she's trying to figure out, you know, kind of what they want to see and how she can make it happen. And she asks about makeup styles. So she's like, well, what do you think, like a dominant eye and a soft lip, or like a dominant lip and a soft eye? And Eddie's like, no, a dominant lip and a dominant eye. And Bianca is incredibly happy with this. They have you can see and feel that they have a really good connection, the three of them. Next, we have Jocelyn, who is so excited because Jocelyn is engaged and she loves everything wedding. So she is so excited about this challenge. She is talking to Brittany and Brandon, and Brittany wants to see like a really like fluffy, beautiful princess look. And Jocelyn is talking about how we can do some padding and shape and give Brandon some body. And Brandon is a basketball player. He's not very comfortable in this situation, and he's not sure if he wants body. They're really on very different pages, and it's very uncomfortable.
How do you do drag without body? I mean, again, you knew what you're... Anyway, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
but explain what you mean by that with like body, like
either like hip pads.
Mhm.
Some queens will use like breastplates, or they'll like pad like their boob area as well, or like contour on depending on like the shirt they're wearing and stuff.
Yeah, like if you're going to be wearing a dress, like you would think that you would know that you're probably going to have padding in it. So
yeah, but Brandon's like, I'm cool looking kind of Halloween costume woman in drag. I'm not cool with you actually transforming me into something that really looks like a woman. That's the vibe I'm sort of getting right now.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Amy is really, so Amy and Kevin and Dayla are talking, and Kevin has a pretty thick beard, and Amy's never seen him without the beard. So she's really nervous about what his face is going to look like. And so's Dayla, because as Dayla says, like in her confessional, it could be anything. Like you have no idea what to expect, because like even Kevin himself hasn't seen himself without facial hair for almost a decade.
I mean, one
So,
thing to expect is just like a really white skin in that area.
which is okay if you're putting makeup on top of it.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's the first thing that they'll notice is just like just a white, like almost a beard of whiteness.
A beard of whiteness. I love that. But
Milk,
so that's the
Milk would have
part.
totally left the beard though.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, that's the part that of the challenge that's worrying Dayla the most. So Dayla, like Bianca as well, is pretty confident. I mean, Dayla's not a sewer, but we did see Dayla construct a beautiful garment in the very first episode that she won. So Dayla feels a little bit more kind of comfortable in this as well. Now, Darian's couple, they are Drag Race super fans, like obsessed,
Awesome.
and they are awesome. So it's Damon and can't remember the names of the people because they don't say it very often. What's the woman's name? Anna. So it's Anna and Damon. And so they are the super fans, and they talk about wanting a fierce look. So, and they reference Sharon and Detox. So, Sharon Needles and Detox, which I include pictures of in the documents, so an easy visual of kind of like the aesthetic they're kind of going for here. So, Sharon Needles was on season 4, and Detox was on season 5, and they definitely have more of like an alternative, like darker kind of style. But Darian is concerned about this because you've got to make an unconventional gown with very conventional wedding materials. And Darian's not quite sure where to even start with these non-goth wedding materials. Next, we have Courtney's couple, the very, very straight Steve, who is an explosive specialist. Courtney is really out of her element here, and a lot of other queens begin to point this out. So Dayla's the first one who's calls out whether or not Courtney can handle this challenge, because Courtney is used to her face and her body and has things designed and customized for her specifically. So how is she going to handle doing something for somebody who is very different physically from her?
Not only that, I'm thinking first of all, Courtney's gonna crash and burn on this one. That's my prediction. But also, Courtney's very judgmental of people outside of herself, and I could see that also getting in the way, right? Like, oh, this body's just not working for me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's definitely a Courtney thing. Dayla makes a joke that, Courtney only wears chapstick and mascara, so how is she going to figure out how to do makeup on a face that's very different? Ryan and Amy and Adore are chatting, and Adore's throwing out her sort of speak and everything, and she makes a comment about how Ryan asks about wearing a veil, And Adora's like, oh, you don't need to worry about wearing a veil because I'm going to beat your face. And Ryan's really taken aback because for him, he thinks that he's actually like talking about getting his face beat. He's like, to me, this has a very different meaning. And Adora has to be like, wait, no, this is just lingo. This is what we mean when we're talking about like putting makeup on. this is what we mean. It was really just charming. It's just how clueless. But they're trying to figure out like a aesthetic or vibe to go for, and Amy is like, oh well, for my wedding, like I dream of like Vera Wang and poofy and sophisticated and elegant. And Adora's like cuts to Adora in the talking head confessional, like, elegant? Are you serious? Like, did you not hear me when I said over and over again that I can't sew? Because Adore did say many times that she's very nervous and needs something sort of simple. And I think she was also trying to guide them a little bit more towards her personal style, which doesn't really mesh with their style either. So that's going to be a challenge for Adore. But Rue enters the workroom to take the women to be fitted for their groomswear, tuxedos all around. So it's just the queens and their brides to be. More is pointed out about Courtney perhaps being unable to handle the challenge, with Darian pointing out that Courtney is putting her bride in a bath mat muumuu. And even Courtney's bride is like, it's gonna hang like a big robe like that, because it really is just like two pieces of fabric sort of like just loosely stuck together.
I would be
Bianca
cracking up. This is a great photo.
it is hilarious. Bianca and Alex really bond. So Alex is Dutch and just very open, and gay marriage is very normalized, and it's nothing unusual. Like, even Alex talks to Bianca and is like, I don't understand why it's not something that's more normal, like why people have to have all these discussions and protests and everything else. Like, why isn't it just the way things are? And Bianca comes around and realizes that she really likes this guy. Like, they're really friends now. And Bianca, of course, has to make a joke because she can't be serious. And she's like, look at me, I actually made a friend. And she kind of like makes fun of herself. But it's true. I mean, they really bond, and it's shown there that they get along really well and they're working together, which is something that we haven't really seen from the other queens yet. But Rue walks into the workroom for the walkthroughs because it's time to get the bridal party started. Or as I like to say, it's time to make it work. So the first stop is with Jocelyn and with Brandon, and Rue asks Brandon how he feels about his teammates seeing him in drag, and Brandon doesn't even want to think about it. It's absolutely devastating to him. He's incredibly nervous and afraid about what people are going to say when they see him in drag. Rue points out,
like, you signed up for this, dude. Like,
have we seen what he looks like in drag?
Not yet.
Okay,
that's coming up.
And you're gonna describe how each of them looks, right?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah.
There's a good comparison photo too.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna actually, I'm just taking this in. I'm just listening. It's just for me 100% audio right now. And then later this evening, when I have a quiet moment, I'm gonna open up the PDF and I'm gonna just go through it all because I'm gonna just remember everything.
See all the wonderful pictures.
Yeah. Because I'm picturing things in my mind pretty well here. But I think that then looking at the PDF later will be fun. It will be like a second experience.
So right now they're not in drag at all. Neither one of them, the queen nor their bride-to-be, are in drag. They're just in the workroom. They're still constructing all of their pieces for their looks. And Rue's coming around just to kind of feel out what direction they're going in. And Rue points out to Jocelyn how her style and taste level have been really heavily critiqued, and asks how she's going to handle it for this challenge. And Jocelyn's, she says she's going to keep it in her style, but definitely more sophisticated and polished. But Rue isn't buying it, and really, this was an actual thing that was said, because it was like, if Jocelyn's ass is covered, how will the judges recognize her? And just Rue actually said, like, if your ass is covered, how will we recognize you? Just a little light reading from Rue herself. But moving on to Darian and Damon, Rue asks if Damon's wife proposed the idea of getting married on the show, but it was Damon's idea, actually, because Damon's is a super fan. And he talks about how he wants to look like a horror bombshell. Like, he's obsessed with like horror and goth and like that sort of like, he really wants to live that kind of dark aesthetic. And he says that if Jim Morrison was going to be a drag queen, it would be me. And I really think the resemblance is uncanny. It's like, it's just a good comparison. If you look at the two of them, it's like, that makes sense. But also, that's quite a big beard that this guy has. So what's going to happen when that's gone as well? So it's like, for those who are listening without the visuals, Damon is somewhat of a larger man with really long hair and a big scruffy beard. So it's going to be a pretty big transformation. Next up is Bianca and Alex. Alex has like the beginning of the dress on, and Bianca's a costume designer, so there's no struggle for her here. She very simply says, we're giving a classic lady look. But then it cuts to Courtney Act's confessional with her shading Bianca because gasp, a boat neck gown. Once again, the same neckline that we've seen over and over again from Bianca, because while Bianca at the beginning might have called out Courtney Act for her lack of versatility, now Courtney Act is doing the same to Bianca and calling her out for her lack of versatility in the style of the gowns that she makes, because the neckline is trademark Bianca. She's worn this style time and time again, and it's pretty and it's well made, but everybody's already seen it multiple times.
I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
Another one trick pony.
So the brides to be are gifted Klein, Epstein, and Parker certificates for their participation, and the Klein, Epstein, and Parker are the makers of all of Rue's suits. So usually shouts them out as well, like when he enters the workroom in his beautiful tailored suits. That's the company. So they're all getting gift cards so that they can buy some suits in the future. They can go suit shopping once they're out of drag. And of course, as always, as Rue reminds the queens before leaving, tomorrow's the big day. Good luck, and don't fuck it up. But as soon as Rue leaves, a door nearly breaks down. She's at the mannequin where she's trying to figure out how to sew together and construct this the skirt for the dress, and she just doesn't know what to do. Like, she just is at a complete loss. So it goes back and forth between seeing her sort of like on her knees on the floor looking at the pieces of her dress, to the talking head confessionals where she's like, I don't want to disappoint Rue again. Like, I want to be good at this, but I can't figure it out. And Bianca tries to give her some advice and to try and help her along, but it almost seems like Adore can't really hear her most of the time, or is just like, she's so overwhelmed that there's so much going on, and all the other queens are busy focusing on themselves. So Adore is kind of left to figure things out on her own, and as we can see, it's not going very well. Then, sharp cut to Elimination Day. It is the special day, and Jocelyn is so excited. She's the first queen we see, and she's almost like bouncing, like vibrating. She's so excited. And She's got the wig and the veil on her bride-to-be, and she asks Brandon, do you feel like a princess? And Brandon's response is, I guess.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the energy match isn't there. Jocelyn is excited and Brandon is terrified. Now Adore gets read by her bride. Her bride is not happy either, which is interesting. Because like Adore's pulling out things, trying to make things work, pulls out this like black wig that's got bangs and sort of like it's kind of curly, but like not defined curls. It's almost like if you brushed curls out. And Adore's queen or bride is like, that looks like a thrift store wig. So it's kind of funny that Adore's not getting any peace here, even from people she's supposed to be working with. And Courtney says that, seeing Adore and her daughter is making me feel confident. But Adore claps back with a reference from season 5, when she points to Courtney Act's dress, which is kind of like a caftan. And she's like, well, that fucking Honey Mahogany dress. And Honey Mahogany was the queen of caftan dresses from season 5. So it's the show referencing itself again. But Courtney snaps back with better than having a mahog body. So that's where the mood is in the room. Literally everybody seems to be having fun, taking turns, poking at Adore and referencing that whole hog body line. So that was something that was referenced a little earlier in the season. In case people don't remember, it kind of becomes like an iconic staple thing for Adore, where Michelle called out Adore for not being cinched, and Adore said like, "Oh, I have a hog body right now." So the queens took that and ran with it and ran it into the ground in this episode. Like it's
they beat a dead horse with it. Like
yeah.
I was transcribing the dialogue. I was like, I'm over it. Get it, like change the tune.
Let her
I
rest.
even put in my notes like the cattiness is turned up to freaking 11 in this episode, and then like that segues into the dialogue. So it's definitely a bit more pointed. It's a very awkward episode in that regard. There's tension.
And I feel bad for Adore. Like she's struggling a lot too. And I don't feel like anybody's really like supporting or encouraging her. Like it feels like she's kind of almost become like the Laganja, like I could almost see Adore in that moment being like, I feel very attacked, because literally every single person in that room was turning on her. And Courtney Act isn't done yet. She isn't done yet, because after that moment, there's a confessional talking head where Courtney just reads what Adore has been doing and then just says like, well, I mean, it's Adore, but it's going to be a disaster anyway. So harsh. Jocelyn is starting to put makeup on Brandon, and she is struggling because he is deep in his feelings about having people see him in full drag. Like, he does not want his teammates, as he says multiple times, to see him in full drag. And as he mentions, he says, in my profession, it's not funny for a gay person to, come in the locker room. So there was some discussion about whether or not people should have to discuss their sexuality in like a locker room situation. Courtney says that if it's about freedom of expression, that's a good thing. But if it's to put a target on somebody or to make sure a person is not looking at them, then that's something different altogether. So it was a really interesting moment, but still Brandon was very uncomfortable and didn't seem to want to have part of that conversation either.
I'm confused how they vetted him to let him on the show if he's so uncomfortable being in this
thinking the same
position
thing.
anyway. Like he seems really not not here with the program.
Yeah.
Literally. So I don't understand how this was okayed or, keep going.
Oh, yeah. It's, well, I mean, you've
Yeah.
probably already figured out who the
Yeah.
person is, right? It seems
Yeah.
pretty obvious. But yeah, so we'll talk about it at the end. But yeah,
Okay.
if you were thinking it was Brandon, it was Brandon.
From the second you like even mentioned them, and then just this still photograph of his face, I'm like, yeah, this is not going to turn out well. So okay.
And I did want to point out really quick, like, Jocelyn, throughout this entire ordeal, what we've covered thus far has been nothing but a good sport. She's been, trying to act really positive and hoping that'll, like, rub off on Brandon. I did transcribe the dialogue, and in her confessional, she did say, like, Brandon is a professional athlete, so getting into drag is a huge leap for him. She's very excited for him to do this, especially within when you consider the sports world and how homophobic it can really be. Like, I mean, Jocelyn saw this as a huge opportunity for Brandon and for some diversity to open up and for him to change because of this ordeal. But he's so not into it. It's just not clicking. It's not computing. So that's all I wanted to say. Jocelyn has been so positive about things, but it's been hard on her with Brandon.
Yeah, Jocelyn's been giving a lot and a lot of energy, but Brandon hasn't been like reciprocating at all. Like, not trying even. So it's been very difficult, and Jocelyn's been really trying her hardest. So after that discussion, we see Dela and her bride for a brief second, and we see the beard is gone. Everything looks good. So that's exciting. They're very excited. But then Bianca, of course, has to make a shady comparison about Jocelyn's bride. Because Bianca is reminded of that one girl gremlin, from the movie Gremlins.
The one we're gonna watch on New Year's Eve. I'm excited. Oh my god, that's
It's awful. So we see Jocelyn's fixing up her bride and fixing her hair, but we see the image, and I mean, she doesn't look happy, and the
oh my
reference is
god.
kind of harsh, but it's pretty accurate. And if
Yeah.
you yeah, it's sad though. Yikes. Of course Bianca had to go there. Then we are cutting to the runway. CoverGirl, put the bass in your walk. Rue struts her stuff on the runway, looking absolutely gorgeous as always. Very sparkly and beautiful in this long, sort of silvery blue dress. Gorgeous. And Rue introduces the main judges, of course. We have Michelle Visage wearing a white blazer and a black tank top, and we have Santino Rice wearing a white shirt, and our special guest judges, Neil Patrick Harris and David Burka. Neil Patrick Harris is wearing a white suit, and his husband is in the traditional black, so it's beautiful. And we have now, instead of Sissy That Walk, we have Sissy That Wedding, because it's runway time. And first up, we have Jocelyn Fox and Bradonna Fox. So we see Brittany looking absolutely beautiful in her tux that's black and white and gray and pink, and it's just, she looks beautiful. We see Jocelyn. Jocelyn's wearing like this silver. It's very much a Mother of the Bride look, but it's not Jocelyn's style at all. Like, she is covered head to toe, like neck and arms and everything. It's just it's very covered. It's very not Jocelyn. But it's sort of like a taupey,
It's
kind
very
of pale
matronly.
gold. It's very matronly, and that is it's
Does it
sad.
look
She's not even
good?
wearing many.
That
No,
Jocelyn does not look good.
no.
No.
I mean, her
Okay,
face is beautiful, but the outfit itself is not good. It's not flattering on her, and
got
it
it.
isn't her style at all. And we see Bradonna Fox who is walking down with the veil, and Berdana's gown is long and sort of poofy and frilly like they wanted, long sleeves and a high neckline. So it seems to have accomplished what they wanted to have accomplished. There's a tiara and the veil and big earrings. The makeup, though, I mean, Brandon is black, so it's darker skin, and Jocelyn clearly struggled because Brandon's face looks a little bit more
Ashy as hell.
ashy. It's like very silver metallic, and it's not a good look. Next we have Courtney Act and Reenact, so very clever drag name. Courtney is wearing a sleeveless, totally sheer dress that's just strategically covered in colorful butterflies. And yes, her hair is also still blonde. And her bride is wearing the sort of caftan dress that's like blue underneath with like the lace on top. And there are some butterflies to tie it all together. They're kind of, Courtney says they're kind of going for like a Southern Belle kind of thing, and they're trying to be really cute about that, but it's not really. It's kind of trying to say it's not really going in Courtney's favor because Courtney is very much stealing the spotlight in her nearly nude illusion dress. Next we have Bianca and Fifi Del Rio. So Bianca is wearing a long yellow dress that's kind of, it's not a mermaid gown, but it's kind of has like the flared train at the bottom, and like a big yellow beautiful hat on the side of her hair. And we have Fifi Del Rio in the, as mentioned before, boat neck gown that's got little hints of yellow in it so that it ties in with the mother of the bride look. She too has a veil, and the dress has like shorter sleeves. And Bianca does a little comedic act when they walk down the runway, and she pulls a tissue out of her wig and starts crying, and Rue cackles. It's very much putting on a performance. Next, we have Darian Lake and Androgyny. And Darian is wearing like a black, like knee-length skirt and a very shiny, long sleeve, almost like kind of like a tunic style. It's very Darian because it's very sparkly, and Darian is always sparkly. But it's more like a silver with like hints of other colors in it. And Androgyny is floor length black gown with like black feathers on the shoulders, and she's got a black wig, and like they both have like little stripes of purple in their hair. And when they're walking down the runway, they have a really like fun act going where Anne has a very like stern face on, and she's carrying a white bouquet of flowers, and she hates that it's a white bouquet of flowers. So Darian pulls out a spray can and paints the flowers black.
I will say, when I watched this, I laughed because it's what Darian says, like, as she's walking with her bride, that really it makes it so good. So she says, "My bride is sort of Nightmare Before Christmas, and she's terrified that her bouquet is white. So I whip out a can of spray paint and spray that sucker black, like my heart." And it's only in such a way that Darian delivers that just makes it so good. But that just made me laugh. I loved that entire exchange.
The bride looks just like Chyna the wrestler, if anybody remembers her.
Oh my gosh, she does.
Identical. Like, I just look.
Oh my goodness.
Identical to her.
That's a great comparison.
That is a great comparison, because Chyna did have a lot of like ring attire that was just all black. It was
also
like
very masculine jawline, probably because she took a lot of testosterone to get those muscles, I'm pretty sure. But Yeah, identify.
And finally, we have Adore and Honey Bun Delano. So Honey Bun is wearing her sort of what Adore constructed, sort of poofy gown with a black leather jacket on top of it and like a very like a tulle bow on the top of her head with a big poofy black wig. And Adore is wearing a beige dress with a beige halter on top of it, and her hair is like in a loose ponytail over one shoulder. Adore says that her daughter's a rebel and says that like her daughter skipped school to get married and then borrowed her leather jacket. But she also says that she looks like Chucky's bride, so of course it's a party. But I don't know if anybody who can see that has access to the pictures of the document, do you think that they look like mother and daughter?
No. No.
Just no. And we have Ben de la Creme and Suzette a la mode. So Dela is wearing like a knee length. It's like a set. So we've got the knee length. It's like a pretty pink color, and there's like a white top with like a pink little cropped cardigan on top of it, and like a frilly. I can't know how to exactly describe it. It's like a frilly part in the middle that's also pink. So it's just a lot of contrasting pink and white. And the bride is wearing a white dress that has pink flowers over it and pink flowers in the veil. And they have a fun little walk down the aisle, and Dela really leans into the mother of the bride character, where she's fussing over her bride and kind of making sure she doesn't have lipstick on her and just kind of picking her up. And she also kind of does similar to what Bianca did. She pulls a tissue out of her dress. So not like her wig like Bianca did, but it pulls a tissue out of her dress and just loudly weeps. Like it's full on like hysterics.
That's awesome.
And the judges eat it up. They are living for it. Then we cut to a shot of the brides and the grooms together, all on the main stage. So they're all in their couples of two, and Rue begins the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today, and they all wrote their own vows. Regina, did you have all the vows?
I unfortunately did not. When I was deciding, because I did realize I was getting short on time. I was between, do I want all of the judges' critiques and what else did I write in here? And like their deliberations, or do I want to squeeze the vows in there? And I chose the critiques and the deliberations. I'm sorry.
No, good choice. I just wanted to see if you had, because I mean, I thought they were sweet.
How
And they're
dare you, Regina? How
Lack of
dare you?
You know what? It's my time to sashay away. You know what?
I thought it was cute and like it was fun, but I mean, you not like we really get anything specifically from it. Like I kind of skipped over it too. Like in the recap, I shared a few pictures of it because they were being like sweet for the most part, like talking about it. Some of them went more of a comedic route, and Darian's couple really leaned into the drag race references. Like it was so there, the whole thing was nothing but drag race references, and I was like, if I have to try and like break down all these references, that would be its own 83-page document. Like it was just like they are just proved that they were such super fans that it was like referencing everything. But so it was a lot of like just very short. They actually didn't spend a lot of time on this section. Like I thought that it would be more, but they really said like 2 or 3 lines and then that was it. So after they read their vows, congratulations to the happily married couples, and you may kiss the brides, and everybody's happy. And now it's time for critiques. So we start with Jocelyn, and so Regina, you have all the critique.
Was Brandon happy? Like, did Brandon seem like he
He
was in a good mood at this point?
he does not look happy at all.
Like during the the wedding part of it, and after the wedding, like was he not even happy about getting married?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, he was not
I know that
happy.
technically they were
Yeah,
already
he
married.
was very unenthusiastic, like very little to no energy. He was just kind of like, well, like I have to do this, and I'm gonna put my best foot forward, I guess. And he recited his vows, and that was that. His wife, Brittany, I think her name is. I think she was a little bit more excited about things. When he first walks down the runway, she kind of turns around and says like, "Oh wow!" Like she's very excited. She says he looks beautiful. The like. So the energy is very different between the two. But yeah, Brandon is very unenthusiastic about things still.
I wouldn't, just from the still, it doesn't even look like there's a best foot forward. It looks like he threw his shoe in and pointed at it, like, here you go. Like, he does not look.
Yeah. So I did transcribe all of the judges' critiques. We're starting with Jocelyn. So Neil Patrick Harris starts off and says, well, Jocelyn looks absolutely gorgeous, but it lacks some sort of unity between the two of you. And he kind of ends it in that sort of like tone that's going up, like it's sort of a question. So he's kind of unsure about things. So then Michelle goes on and says, your drag daughter, the face, is not her color. She looks metallic. It's really off-putting. Santino then says, not loving this whole wedding gown. The waist is not giving the definition that we want to see. So then RuPaul, he talks with Brandon, or she rather. She's referring to Brandon now, and she says, so, Bradonna, was there anything you were uncomfortable with? And then Brandon replies, just my manhood being questioned. RuPaul then says, and who was questioning it? And then Brandon replies and says, no one here, but it will be questioned. And so then everybody at the table and like in the room on the stage kind of laughs it off. They're like, ha, hee hee hee. And then Michelle says, that is yet to come. And then the camera zooms in on Brandon's face, and he's seething inside. He is not happy about the reaction that he had gotten when he said that his manhood is yet to be questioned. He felt slighted because he did come out and say like, yeah, I was uncomfortable with this, and it felt like his concerns were sort of laughed off and being joked about, which we will see further in the deliberations. But Brandon was definitely not happy about that reaction. So then we move on to Courtney Act.
Before you go on, so he actually like left the stage.
Not yet. Not yet. He will leave the stage, but it's for a totally completely different reason. But he's still on stage, and he has a glare. Like if looks could kill.
I think that
everybody
picture,
in that
he
room
looks
would be
like
dead.
Michael Jackson in Thriller when he's turning into a zombie. That's how that makeup looks to me. Like when he's starting to get like sunken in, and that makeup job is really bad. Ashy. Just looks, like a zombie.
Yeah, that look right there. Elle caught the look. That is the look that Brandon had after everyone sort of laughed at the comment about his manhood being questioned. That was the look that he had. So after that, he then says like, oh man, like I think I'm about to be sick. And so then he leaves off the stage. He takes off the heels first, and he walks off the stage. And then RuPaul says, uh-oh, we've got a runaway bride. And he's still trying to play up the sort of like game of things. And then Brandon starts to throw up. He was so genuinely sick and nervous and anxious about what his teammates would think of him, and just what people would think about him in general, and just of how he looked. Just everything about it was so uncomfortable for him that he goes off and he throws up. So then RuPaul says to Jocelyn, like, go on and check on your bride.
Can I stop there? Just ask a quick question. Is there anything that definitively tells us that it was mostly because of the fear of his teammates, or is it just? I mean, I think it's pretty. I think that would be pretty obvious that like a person would throw up because of high anxiety. That, I mean, that's not uncommon, for people in like a high stress situation or a performance or having performance anxiety. But is there anything specific that like tells us it is other than we know that he is worried about his teammates? Is it possible that there's also just general, this guy is somebody who has a hard time in performance situations?
I ran with the idea that it was more about him being self-conscious about what his teammates would say, because if we go back previously when he is getting the makeup put on him, Brandon and Jocelyn have a conversation, then Courtney and her bride start to jump in, and I'll read that to you now. So Brandon's in the chair and Jocelyn is doing Brandon's makeup, and Brandon says and asks Jocelyn, so you put this stuff on all the time? And then Jocelyn confirms and says, mm-hmm. And he says, wow. The most unenthusiastic wow you've ever heard in your life. And Jocelyn in her confessional says, Brandon is a professional athlete, so getting into drag is a huge leap for him. She's trying to be enthusiastic about things, trying to look things from a positive point of view. Brandon goes on and says, am I going to be surprised when I look in the mirror? And then Jocelyn says, mm-hmm, you're going to be so pretty. Then Jocelyn continues on about Brandon in her confessional. The second I put the makeup on Brandon's face, he is not having it. And then Brandon continues and says, I don't want my teammates to see me with hips on. And Jocelyn says, what do you think that your teammates are going to say when they see you in drag? To which Brandon replies and says, oh man, it's going to be posted all over Facebook, the locker room chat that we have, it's going to be a disaster. Like, there's going to be some serious questioning. And then Courtney's bride replies, you just got to be secure with yourself, Brandon. To which Brandon says, no, I'm very secure with myself. With my profession, it's not ready for a gay person to, come into the locker room. I'd rather someone be straightforward and say, I'm gay. If they're in the locker room with me, I don't want them to be checking me out neither. To which Courtney says, if your intent is that a gay man in a locker room should be open as gay because everyone should be able to express their sexuality freely, then that works for me. But if it's I want him to let me know I'm gay, or he's gay, so that I know he's not looking at me or I'm uncomfortable because of that, then I feel like the intent is a bit different. And it doesn't entirely make sense. To which Jocelyn says, I get your concerns, but I think what you're doing is going to change people's minds, especially your teammates. Brandon says, do you think so? And then Jocelyn ends with, I know so. So that is what definitely like tipped me off and said, okay, he's definitely self-conscious about what others are going to say. And even when RuPaul is walking through like the workroom and talking with the queens at their tables, RuPaul asks Brandon, so like, what are your teammates going to say? And Brandon says, like, man, I don't even want to think about it. It'd be devastating. So I think there are indications there that led me to that assumption that, oh yeah, he doesn't want anybody to see him. Like he's getting anxious about this, like very uncomfortable. Things are coming to a head. He goes off and he gets sick.
I'm not suggesting that it isn't a part of it, or at least even maybe the largest part of it. I just as a former stage performer myself, who was on stages performing, I mean, maybe 500 times in my life, I can tell you I never ever got over the feeling of wanting to puke before I went out on stage.
I mean, I definitely have thoughts about this, but I'll just wait till we're done with the whole episode and everything. But like,
there's just a lot there that's happening to the guy, right? I mean,
yeah,
so
but
there's
no
question that he has feelings about this that are a part of his anxiety level going up. But I think it's very easy to look at this moment and just be like, this guy is puking because he's disgusted and freaked out about being in drag, when there may be a lot more that's happening to this guy in this moment. like people laughing at him on the stage in that moment, a sense of being uncomfortable in that environment altogether. All of that stuff sort of combined together, and certainly the idea that when this is over, my teammates are gonna ridicule me. Um, I mean, that doesn't seem odd that would push a person to like just suddenly like having a panic attack.
Well,
I
and I
agree.
think that was sort of emphasized in the episode with like the music and the lighting, where we kind of see the people are laughing, and it's kind of like, like you almost see like hear like the echoing of the laughing while it's kind of like the close up on Brandon's face, because it's not just like Brandon was already uncomfortable about getting into drag in the first place, as we saw through the entire episode. And now not only is he in drag, but everybody's telling him how awful he looks.
Yeah.
How
Exactly.
unflattering everything is.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
that's what really seemed to be emphasized the most, where then Brandon's like, I can't handle this.
Yeah, like it
I
might
have
like
to
it
go.
might have been different if there had been like a ton of positivity thrown towards him and a lot of like this is amazing, and and like and look at like if there had been, it might have at least tempered the anxiety that he probably is still going to be feeling about his teammates, but the fact that it's just like a lot of like laughing at him and like also, or making a joke at his expense and this isn't good and all that kind of stuff, and him feeling uncomfortable in it and him thinking about that. It's just like, and like, a sports player, who goes out and performs their thing in front of a huge stadium is just so different from like somebody who goes out like on a stage like to perform in a different way, and so drastically different that I could see that being in itself a kind of traumatic experience.
Yeah, I definitely have like a lot of thoughts on this. But yeah, like let's finish the episode and then like get into, because I want to know what happened in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I left off on. Sorry, I
So
transcribed.
Brandon has just gone off the stage and been sick, and then Jocelyn's off to check with her, so then we move on to Courtney Act.
Right. After that, you hear Brandon say like, "Oh man, like I'm so sorry," and Jocelyn says like, "No, don't be sorry. I'm sorry." And then Rue moves on to Courtney Act and reenact. Michelle says, "Why did we go with this length?" And Courtney says, "Well, we decided we were going to go for a Southern style Louisiana wedding." To which Michelle replies and says, "You think that says Louisiana?" David Burtka says, "I really felt that you're the bride and reenact is your mother in a way."
Whoa.
To which Courtney replied and said, "I'm like the hot cougar mom at the wedding who hits on all the daughter's single friends."
Oh, good.
To which Michelle
Lord.
To which Michelle says, "You show me up at my own wedding, bitch, you're going home."
I mean,
So-
if you couldn't dislike Courtney more, I mean, like this episode sort of like, I mean, sounds like this is the episode where you just, if you were already not liking Courtney, this is the one that just seals it for you.
So that was a time. Then we move on to Bianca Del Rio and Fifi Del Rio. David Burtka kicks off the critiques and says, "I think the Del Rios nailed it." To which Santino says, "The family resemblance is on point. And then he says, "I wish there was a little bit of a train in the back." To which Bianca, replies and says, "I mean, he was battling shoes already and eyelashes and his balls in his ass. I mean, did I really want him to give him a train too?" So that ended that. It was mostly positive critiques about Bianca and Fifi. So then we move on to Darien Lake and Androgyny Lake. Santino starts off and says, "It's kind of a risk going away from like a traditional wedding gown, but it fits your personality and we're feeling your energy, definitely." To Damon / Androgyny. Neil Patrick Harris then says, "I didn't get the goth thing. And I didn't get goth from you either, in reference to Darian. Your outfit, to me, seems a little cocktail party dress to me. So those were the critiques for those two. We move on to Dela, to which Santino starts off and says, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that severe angle that you do on your own eye makeup on your bride. Love the attention to detail on all the rosettes. Overall, well done. Then RuPaul says something that I didn't catch. Oops, I just realized that. But it was really just like a funny quip about like Kevin's beard and how his wife probably didn't know who the hell she was marrying. You know, funny stuff like that. Then we move on to Adore, to which here is where the critiques really come to a head. Santino starts off and he says, it's all a little bit of a mess, kind of, for me. I just wish that the overall execution would have been more on point. RuPaul says, now what kind of bride did you and Amy want to be? He asks this to Ryan / Honey Bun Delano. To which they reply and say, well, after talking with Adore, we decided to go more in the punk direction. David Burtka then says, I love that you want to put fun into it and stuff like that, but it didn't look like you were her mother at all. To which Michelle says, I'm not even sure that I even see a family resemblance. I think you failed that part. So after that, all of the brides and the queens go into the Form Decor lounge while the judges deliberate. So now, just between us in-laws, here are the deliberations. So for the Foxes, Michelle says, the dress was a disaster. It was like schlump in heels. Neil Patrick Harris says, I feel bad that Brandon got sick, but I kind of would have felt the same way if I lifted the veil and my face looked like that. And Michelle laughs. After that, we move on to Courtney Act and Reenact, to which David Burtka says, overall, the makeup looked great, their hair looked great, but the outfit that Reenact had kind of looked sort of like a bedspread. Michelle Visage says, I was so affected by the drag mother stealing all the limelight. It's not right. Then we move on to Bianca Del Rio and Fifi Del Rio, to which Santino says, the dress was on point, well done. David Burtka says, I would mistake Fifi as a woman if I saw her on the street. To which RuPaul makes a little quip like saying, you don't really get out that often, do you, David? And he says, no. So there's that. Then we get to Darien Lake and Androgyny Lake, and Michelle says, I love the goth, kind of emo bride. I just wish Darien would have taken it a step further. To which Neil Patrick Harris says, it made no sense that it was Edgar Allan Poe meets New Jersey housewife mom. She was my least favorite out of all of them. Then we get to BenDeLaCreme and Suzette a la mode, to which David Burtka says, the transformation with Kevin was extraordinary. Neil Patrick Harris then goes on and says, Bendela looked great. The color was terrific on her. Not much about those two. And then we end with Adore and Honey Bun Delano. Santino says, the attention to detail is non-existent, and all that black underneath the eye, not flattering. Rough, 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 rough. To which Michelle says, and I can't even say she focused on herself because that was a mess too. They were both a disaster. So that ends the judges' deliberations, and RuPaul
can you refresh me on who was the one that was it Neil Patrick Harris said this is the worst for me, or this is my least favorite?
So he was not a fan of Darien Lake and her bride's goth emo look.
Got it.
And
yeah.
He said like she was my least favorite out of all of them.
Okay, cool. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. That I just wanted the name.
Yeah. And then after that ends the deliberations, and then RuPaul says, silence, bring back the divorce lawyer. And then we cut to the commercial break, and then all of the queens are back up. Bianca Del Rio is announced as the winner of the main challenge, and then the prize was a trip to Hawaii for Bianca and then her couple. Dela was safe. Courtney Act was safe. Darian was safe, and that lands Jocelyn and Adore in the bottom two.
Ooh.
Well, what was interesting is that so when the queens came back, Dayla was immediately announced as safe, which is different from how it's been done before. Because normally there would be like a, okay, this, queen 1, queen 2, queen 3, like you were all amazing, and it's like some moment of suspense, like who's gonna win. But in this case, it was very obvious. It was like, Dayla, you're safe. Bianca, you win. And then Adore was actually the next person called out as being in the bottom. So it was immediate, like, Adore, you are up for elimination. Then Courtney was called as safe. And then it was between Darian and Jocelyn for who was going to be in the bottom. So that would have been sort of the order. Then you would have had Adore was immediately like called out as being one of the worst in the bottom. And then you had Jocelyn as second, and then Darian sort of would have been third. So if it was a 3-way lip sync, Darian would have been in the bottom as well, which was really surprising to me because I thought when it came to the actual makeover element of it, that Darian did amazing. Because I thought that androgyny looked incredible.
I'm looking forward to seeing it later.
I agree. I did enjoy Androgyny's transformation the most, and I think that payoff and that suspense that we had in the beginning really pays off with the transformation. I was impressed with it, just because earlier in the episode, Elle mentioned this. Darian is talking with Damon and with Anna, and they're like, "Well, what kind of wedding do you want?" And Damon says, like, "I want." I wrote this down because I thought it was really interesting. Hold on. Okay, so Damon is the one who kind of describes, like, he wants more gothy, cool, rock and roll, horror, not traditional look. And then that's when Anna, his wife, says, like, yeah, we really want, like, Detox, who was the other one? Sharon Needles type vibes. So then Darian Lake in her confessional says, like, oh, goth? Like, the materials are white and silver that they were provided. So, you kind of get the idea, like, oh, Darian isn't for, like, a real doozy. So let's see how this pays off. And I really liked Androgyny's transformation. Do I like Darian's look herself? Not really. I was more with Neil Patrick Harris on that one. I was not feeling it. And we can talk more about, like, what I've read and certain articles and reviews and recaps about the episode. But we're towards the end of the episode, so we'll just conclude it with that. I know Elle linked a video of the lip sync, but I know it was not working for me. So if anybody needs the link, message me. I'll also post it on Discord, so that we can watch it. Do you guys want to know the song that Jocelyn and Adore lip sync to, or do you want to be surprised?
I'm watching it right now. So.
Okay. For those of you not watching it, if there's anybody not watching it.
Jocelyn's dress reminds me of something Catherine O'Hara would wear in Schitt's Creek. Like, that's such a Moira outfit if it were, like, black and silver.
I'm gonna watch the lip sync later.
The song, I don't know if Regina already mentioned it. The song is Aretha Franklin's Think.
I love that song.
I did get a message from someone down on the beanbag saying that the link was blocked for them, and they did message me, and I sent them the link for a video that should work for us here in the US. I don't know if there's, like, a disconnect about that, because I know it wasn't working for me either when I tried to click on it. So if anybody else needs the link, or if the link provided in the Google Doc is not working for you, send me a message. I'll also post it on Discord.
Yeah, it's not working. I just typed in Adore Delana versus Jocelyn Fox and it popped right up on YouTube.
So many things from this episode have been completely scrubbed from the internet, so it's hard to find anything that works. I will say, though, that the lip sync isn't really that spectacular. Like, there's a couple of pretty fun moments in it, but overall, it's not, like, one of the best lip syncs in the show. Like, it's not that memorable.
Yeah, I just finished it, and it's like, it wasn't anything spectacular at all.
My favorite part is when Adore takes her shoes off and is like, I'm taking everybody to church, and then, like, takes her shoes off and, like, really gets into the song. Like, I love that moment so much, but the rest of it's just forgettable.
Well, I certainly hope he did not want everybody in the United States to know all his business, because it was very easy to figure out who he was, his first name, last name, because of Reddit. I found everything out about Brandon on Reddit. And then I Googled him, of course. But, like, by suing and blocking it from being played, I think he kind of brought more attention to it, because Reddit is all over this episode and they just tell everything. There's so much more to his story than you guys thought.
Yeah, so what exactly did he sue for, and, like, did it go to trial? Like, did it settle? Like, what happened?
Okay, wait. So before we dive into that,
I'm watching it, by the way. My favorite line is, "I'm gonna get church on this bitch."
So, okay, John, let me know when you're finished watching it, and for anybody else who's watching it, let me know when you're done, because I don't think the video that I have sent around, or the one that you can find on YouTube, has the Jocelyn's lasting comments, where she kind of talks in the confessional sort of thing when she's back in the workroom writing her message and whatnot. I could read that out because I did transcribe that. So yes, just let me know when the video's done.
All right, I'm done. I watched the lip sync, but I could continue watching and find out who actually went home. I don't know yet. Have you revealed it here in our breakdown of the episode?
I have not revealed it, but you can keep watching.
Because I paused it. I don't want to know. But I will say that I have some thoughts.
Who do you think is going home?
I think that Jocelyn Fox is going home. And by the way, this is my first time seeing the outfit, so now I'm seeing what she looked like. And I will say it's pretty awful looking, but I will also say that it's the first time that she hasn't been wearing dental floss, basically, which is kind of which I think is kind of like, it's kind of cool, kind of exciting, but at the same time, if this is the week that she goes home, which I think it is, because Adore is as bizarre at times as her lip sync was, it is the more enjoyable one to watch. I mean, Jocelyn's is just straight up boring, and at least Adore is doing something, kind of like just sort of channeling that, like I feel like she was doing like a pastor type thing, in a church, or like speaking in tongues or something like that. It was interesting, and so for that reason, I think it saves her.
Elle, do you want to reveal the who goes home? I know it's on your Google Doc. I don't know if you want to reveal it with everyone who's following along with us on the document.
So it was Jocelyn who was told to sashay away
Oh,
and
yeah.
Adore has survived yet another lip sync.
And I mean, yes, it's true. Her dress is terrible. But, I mean, she does leave saying, man, the first time I actually don't wear nothing is the one time I end up going home.
Because it was ugly. So
It was ugly.
She was wearing the muumuu that Darian was like referring to. But after Jocelyn is eliminated, she goes back into the workroom and she says, I'm just so proud of myself and I'm so proud of this journey that I've made, and I'll be forever changed. I'm ready to go home, but this has become my home and these girls have become my sisters. Make me proud, girls. I love you. Keep it foxy. To which then we see Jocelyn exit, and we cut back to RuPaul, who refers to the remaining queens, and she says, "My fierce five, the honeymoon is over. Back to work. And remember, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here?" And then everybody says, "Amen." And then that's the end of the episode.
Well, first of all, can I just say, this was freaking awesome. Thank you both so much for taking the time to build that for us and take us on that journey. It was so enjoyable.
for sure. Y'all did great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this was really informative. Thanks, guys. You guys did a lot of work.
Do you want to talk about some of the lawsuit stuff, Regina?
Absolutely. We have reached the end of the actual recap of the episode, so I think it's safe to say that we can definitely talk about those sorts of details.
Can you tell me like the name, the caption of the lawsuit, like what it's called, like what it was?
Hold on, I don't. Do I have that on my document?
Or you just send it to me
Elle,
later.
do you
Like I
have
don't want to
that by
interrupt you. Go
chance?
ahead.
Elle, do you have that by chance? Hold on.
I'll see if I can find it for you, Hunter. We
Yeah,
can talk about it later.
Yeah, send it to me later.
So why don't I just start? So this is what I know about the lawsuit, just based on the research that I did. You tell me how much of it is right, how much of it is wrong, but you know, it's what I read. I kind of wish I hadn't, because I would have liked to have just experienced this without knowing already what I knew. But apparently, he argues that he was pushed into it by his then girlfriend slash wife, or whatever, the other person, Brittany, that he didn't want to do it, and that he was sort of tricked into it, or pushed into it, and that it was very damaging to his, like, just very like emotional damage, or whatnot,
Emotional distress.
emotional distress, and he sued. I don't know if he sued for money. That part I didn't see anything about it, but that he sued to have it removed from, like, streaming service, like that they couldn't distribute it. They couldn't sell that season with that particular episode in the package.
I mean, he was kind of forced into doing it as a punishment for getting caught cheating on her. That was her punishment.
Oh, wow.
So,
What?
Okay, I did not know
yeah,
that part.
he was cheating on her, and that was her punishment because she knew how uncomfortable he would be doing it.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
So question.
Wow. That is
Was
very
this
interesting.
was this before or after they were married? The
Um,
cheating.
it was after,
No, the
and they
cheating
are
was before.
Oh, the
So
cheating was before, but they're no longer married. They have since
yeah.
divorced. Yeah.
Yeah, but my question, okay,
Well,
so
yeah.
he was caught cheating before they were married, and I guess he still held a grudge and then forced him to do this after they were married. So how long after they were actually married did this show film?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
But I can tell you, like, where he was born, where he went to college, who he played for. I can tell you all that.
Yeah, I don't
Because I know all of
care
it.
about all that.
Kendra knows everything about this guy.
Yeah, she knows his shoe size. But like, okay, so did he sue for, was it just like emotional distress, or was it monetary, or was it just for them to take it down? Like, what exactly did he sue?
I don't know all the legal stuff. I didn't delve into that. When I found out his name, I delved into him because that's more interesting to me, him as a person. And I have suspicions about why.
Did you
I
friend
view
him?
him.
Have you friended him yet on Facebook?
I can't find him on Facebook. His
But you
name's
tried.
pretty.
But you tried.
Oh
I
my
tried to
gosh,
find him on
Kendra.
Facebook, but I have suspicions as I view him as homophobic. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get. Like, I want to know the legal stuff. Like, I want to know what he
yeah,
sued for and all that.
I just wanted to know who he was, where he was born, where he was raised, where he went to school, because I have suspicions about why he views the world the way he does. And I mean, he was born in Texas, so that may feed into like his fear of being, thought of as gay in the locker room and stuff like that. I mean, he
Yeah,
was born and
yeah,
raised in Texas.
and I definitely
And
want to get into like all that, but I need to
yeah,
know the basis first before we get
I
into
have
all that. So,
no clue.
Elle, what was the lawsuit? I'm sure you looked it up. And she's running from the kitchen, jumping over couches, trying to get to the phone.
Forgot the summer. You forgot the summer.
Yeah.
I searched for the full like documentation of the lawsuit, and all I found was like the summary, not like the full text. So I don't know if I was looking in the right place or not, because like I was searching through Pacer.
Okay.
And I was trying to find it because like I had his name and all those other details, but I couldn't find. But his name's also kind of rather generic, so I might have missed the listing. I kind of have to go back and comb through it.
So what was the summary?
It's been really hard to find documentation on this lawsuit. That's why like I've been really silent.
I will find it for you.
Articles that I have found trying to summarize the situation basically give all the details that Kendra really has mentioned. Like, this was an act of revenge from his then partner at the time, Brittany, because he was caught cheating. This was the revenge. This was the aftermath, and so here we are with they're being pulled. But
right, I mean, I get all that, but I want to know what exactly he sued for, what they argued, and how they were able to pull this. Because I understand the personal aspect of this, I really don't care. Like, I understand like he cheated and all that stuff, but he was informed of what this was going to be before he appeared on the show.
Yeah,
and while he was
have
filming,
to sign a disclaimer of some
exactly.
sort.
So like, there's all this legal work that goes into that. So if he's filming this and he sees what it is and he's uncomfortable, he can pull out before this airs, before it happens, or whatever. Usually in the contract. So I'm wondering how he was able to get this pulled from the air, which is why I want to know what exactly he sued for and what the outcome was. All his personal stuff, I don't care. Like, I want to know what was, and did it go to trial, or was it just settled?
Because that might have been a deal. They could have they could, the show might have on its own been like, you know what how about this?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe they made a deal and we're just like, we just won't air this if you don't sue us for monetary benefit.
I love the difference of importance where Kendra only cares about the personal stuff and doesn't care about the legal stuff, and Hunter only cares about the legal stuff, and she's like, I don't care about his personal life.
No, don't get me wrong. I still want to know all that stuff later, Kendra. Like, I'll message you. But like, I want to know how they were able to get this pulled if it wasn't voluntary from the show. If the show did it, I have a lot of respect for them, because that means they were like, you know what, he's having distress over this. This is, actually, impacting his life. he is a professional sports player. This could be trouble later on down the line, especially given that he is hinting to being homophobic. It could affect him later on. So maybe let's just pull this and be done with it. And if that wasn't the case, if the show was like, no, we're going to take this to trial, I want to know, like, was it argued? What did his side argue? How they were able to win him pulling that? Did he get anything else? And like, I want to know the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Because
and
if they did go,
was the case against the show, or was it against her? Because you could also make a pretty strong case, like, she sort of blackmailed me into this. I was in love with her at that time. I was willing to do anything, including do something that is, outside of my own comfort level and whatnot. I mean, and if he was suing her, it's also very possible that the show may have been like, we need to remove this from the air, for our own, like
protection.
For our own protection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to know what the cap's like, who exactly.
Yeah, from my understanding of it, he was able to prove that he was on the show without knowing what he was on for, that it was all kind of orchestrated by his wife at the time, and he didn't know what he was getting involved in, and it was kind of like she did it to get revenge on him. And this lawsuit was recent.
Right.
So like this show aired in 2014, and this lawsuit's from like last year, I believe, because that's when it got pulled. And he was fighting to have it completely removed entirely. And the production company were trying to make a deal, and they wanted to re-edit the episode to basically make it so he was almost non-existent in it. So like they've have experience doing this, because there was actually a queen in a later season of Drag Race who completed the entire season, and then once her season was going to air, a lot of sexual misconduct allegations came out, so they basically pretty much edited her entirely out of the show. So that's what they were proposing at first. They said, hey, instead of like removing this entirely, why don't we edit you out of the show? But I guess he must have had proof. And see, this is why I wish I could find the full documentation, because he was able to convince them to pull it entirely from the US. No, it's not pulled in any other country. It's just the US. But World of Wonder also pulled like every reference from like their YouTube channel and all of their official social media as well. Like that was part of the deal that was made. So whatever proof he had must have been really solid.
Or I'm thinking like that's why I want to know if he got anything monetary, like money wise, because if the deal was just for them to pull it and scrub him from the episode and all that, that's one thing. If he got money, then that means he was able, either the show was just like, let's just settle this and be done with it, or he was able to prove that the show was involved. If it was just that they pulled the show, I would venture to guess that he was able to prove that his wife at the time, didn't tell him exactly what was going to be involved and all this stuff. So that would be deceit on her part, but that the show probably didn't have any awareness of that. That she didn't let them know he wasn't fully aware of what was going to happen. Because if that's the case, then they can be like, okay, you can pull the show, but you're not getting anything else out of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if he had some sort of like email proof that that she had talked to any producer and told them what her motive was, that would be enough.
Right. And if the show was, if they're unaware that he doesn't know what's going on, they are not liable for that because they assumed that he would know. And then again, once he got there and signed the contracts and everything and was aware, he still went forward with it, even though he was uncomfortable. So my guess would be that
I've said I need to read the full documents to be sure, but I said from my understanding of it is that they were married already.
Right.
So she signed them up.
Gotcha.
And he didn't have like any awareness of what exactly it was that he was going to be part of.
Oh, that might also actually be something. There might be something in here in that, because this does happen every once in a while,
Mhm.
is that a show thinks they got the release. They think they got a signature
Exactly.
from the person, and then they look and realize, oh no, we didn't. We thought we did, because I mean, it's really just like a piece of paper that's given to you when you get to SAD or whatnot, and it's collected by some one of the crew that's just collecting contracts and all that kind of stuff. And if he's like, I never signed anything that said that I would be on there, she did, she signed it, but I didn't sign it. And maybe she signed something that gave us, gave her, maybe the document that she signed gave her power to do it because we were married. But if I can prove that she actually tricked me, then that would actually devalue her signature, or whatever right that she may have thought she had, or that she may even have had to sign both of us on there. He may not have had a release, and the show might have been like, "Oh no, we don't have
Right.
his signature."
Or like the description of what was going to happen during the episode, he wasn't aware of what was going to happen, and she did. So that would be a reason for them to have to pull it.
Yeah.
I have a question. Why was it only pulled for the US? Why not other countries? Like, what
Yes.
about it makes it worse in our country than like, I'm confused as to
Well,
why that
he's
would happen.
American, right? So
But
So
Brandon is
it's just to
American.
protect his friend. Well, I get that, like, because his friends are more likely to see it in our country, but
It was a
I
but
don't know.
compromise that was made because he wanted it pulled from everywhere.
Okay.
And that was like the refusal from the production team. They were like, no, we will not pull it everywhere. And that's when they came back with the how about we edit you out? And it was like, no, I want it pulled everywhere. And that's when they eventually compromised and were like, okay, what if we pulled it from the US?
Yeah, allegedly it was World of Wonder who pushed back and said that international streaming services that continued to have that episode, Drag My Wedding, on their platforms would not hinder him in any way, as
Right.
it would here domestically in the US.
Okay.
So that was part of the compromise.
And
I find that very interesting, knowing more about his career, because he spent a large portion of his career in foreign leagues.
I was going to say, I think it's more professional, but overseas, things are seen differently than they are here in the United States. Let's just be honest with
Yeah.
just like, the Dutch, contestant who was saying, I don't understand why it's not more normalized here. Abroad, things are not seen as taboo as they are in the United States when it comes to sexuality and things. But also, if he's concerned about his career, he might have spent more time over in playing leagues overseas, but the money is here in the United States. And so it would make sense for him to agree to pull it here if it's going to hinder his career here for any reason.
And I find the timing interesting because his last year playing he never rose above the G League in the United States, but his last year of play was 2013 and 2014. His career ended then. So he had to know, basketball players know. They just know. Like, it's over. My career's coming to an end. Like, he had to have some suspicion that his career was ending. And he was fairly young at that time. I mean, age-wise, he could have possibly rose in the league, but he had been sent back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And he just wasn't making any headway with the NBA, which was his main goal. But that was the last year he played here or anywhere. He hasn't played basketball since 2014. So I find the timing very interesting too.
Yeah, that's it seems like it was a big mess. It really does. Like, we couldn't hear you, Shelly. Did we lose?
Oh no, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, I thought you said something. This is interesting though. Yeah, you could definitely tell during the episode that he was going to be the issue from the beginning. I mean, and then now knowing the background that this was, payback for him cheating, it makes sense that he didn't even want to be there in the first place. And then this is the event, and then how he ends up looking at the end was just horrible. Oh, that's what I was going to say during the episode. Bianca did a really good job with pairing the brides with people she thought would do them justice, which was very nice of her considering this was supposed to be a wedding, and I wondered if she would have taken that couple knowing that it would have been, the men that she was doing. Because I felt like she gave herself a black couple and she gave Jocelyn a black couple, probably thinking that Jocelyn would be able to handle the makeup like she would, because it's very not easy to handle makeup for black people, especially on camera. Like Tyra Banks, Naomi Campbell are infamous for saying they have to take their own makeup artist places because usually if they have, someone who is white or another race, they just, aren't good at doing makeup for black people. So I wonder if Bianca had gotten him, if it wouldn't have been so the ending and how he reacted wouldn't have been as harsh. I think we talked about that a little bit in the show.
Yeah, I wonder that too. I wonder if Bianca would have picked different people, paired different people up. It'd be very interesting to see what that would have looked like. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts as to if they think, because I think Bianca was pretty fair.
She was. She really was.
But what would be the fair matchup?
I find it interesting that there was that Damon and Anna, they were kind of like the not odd, but they were the unconventional couple. And so when I was rewatching the episode for the upteenth time today, Adore's line about how her bride looked like the bride of Chucky, I thought that was really interesting, and I thought, to myself, kind of thinking what if there was a possibility that Anna and Damon were supposed to be for Adore? But I kind of shrugged off the idea, and I didn't even play with it any further because I did think Bianca did a great job pairing off everybody, and I think everybody, for the most part, did a good job with the challenge that they were given. I mean, this isn't really one of the best episodes. Even before it got pulled, the fans have mixed reviews about this episode. Some view it as cringe, some like it. So, but I don't know if you guys thought about that either.
That's funny because I normally don't rewatch season 6, or at least I watch the first part of it. But the talk show episode, which was the episode before this one, and this episode are probably my two least favorite episodes in the entirety of Drag Race.
Yeah, I'm with
I
you there.
skip them every time. I hate them so much, and it turns me off season 6 in general. So it's I didn't realize that episode had been pulled. I mean, it's not pulled in Canada anyway, but I never realized it. I never paid attention to it because I never watched it. I think I've watched it I watched it more preparing for our talk today than I've watched it ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I hate it.
Absolutely. I had not revisited this episode. And it's so funny that you mentioned that. I had not watched this episode since the first time I watched it back in 2015, 6 years ago. So when you messaged me and said, like, hey, we have a little bit of a problem, like, you don't have the episode available on Hulu in the US. And I was like, wait, what? You know, and I kind of scramble, and I look at Hulu, it's not there. And then I look at Paramount Plus. I don't have Paramount Plus, but I found a way to look into it. It was not there. So I was like, wait, like, what is this? And I even tried to, you know, look on Dailymotion, you know, the more unconventional, unofficial places. No, it was not there. Any evidence of it was scrubbed clean. I'm telling you, you have to go to some shady places to access this episode if you want to here in the US. And that is what I had to do in order to get all of the critiques, all of the dialogue. Yeah. I might get a virus on my MacBook. I don't know. But yeah, any evidence, any trace of it is scrubbed clean for sure. So that lawsuit did something.
We appreciate your sacrifice, Regina. Get a virus. So is there usually a makeover episode like this for every season?
Yes. And they are very hit and miss. Yeah, so there are some of them are pretty terrible and have a history of being pretty terrible. Some of them are more, the later ones are better, but the early season makeover episodes are kind of rough. It's difficult when you're pairing people who have like never done any kind of drag, and like there's moments, like I remember from season 5 when they had their makeover episode where they're literally teaching people how to walk in high heels, and this is all happening in a day. So it's kind of a rough challenge. That's also kind of why I think some of the queen, like Bianca might have paired some of the queens together, is they might have had to bring some outfits from home, because some of the makeover episodes that have happened on the show didn't involve design either. Like some of them were really about, like, you could design, but it was about pairing together with trying to put this into proper words. I'm so tired. This is some, they would bring looks from home. So if you had somebody who was pairing them together, they would try to pick people who had at least similar body types so that they could fit into what they brought. And I think that was something that Bianca might have been looking at as well, looking at the women being like, okay, well, they're all kind of, you know, if you look at them kind of close to each other, you can see how similar they are, like physically, to the queens, so that if they had brought looks from home, they would fit into those drag looks easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sense. She tried. She was trying to be like nice. And well, this was a mess. Not your presentation, like this whole lawsuit, this whole thing of the episode.
It's epically fascinating to me. And when I heard somebody say he was a basketball player, that's why I like jumped in and started researching, because I had to know who he was, because my husband worked for the NBA for over a decade. So I was just curious, like, if he was in the NBA. And I mean, he played for a development team, but he never made it above G League. So that's why I got super into researching him as a person.
I mean, this is going to sound really bad, but like, just looking at him, I was like, he's not NBA. But like, just him staying, like, you know, in the locker room, you know, a gay person, you know, would not be invited and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, what is your brain doing right now? I'm so, because we've come so far, not even like, sure, in the last few years, but like in general, I feel like that was just more of his projection with his own insecurity, even though he's like, I'm secure. No, you're not, dude. You're really not that secure if you're that worried about someone's sexuality and like looking at you in a locker room. Like, no one wants you. What are you talking about? It's just, wow.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I mean, he was raised in a very small town in Texas, and you know how it is in this part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like very, very homophobic here. I mean, it's incredibly homophobic. So I think maybe, you know, just where he was born and raised may have like factored into some of his beliefs, you know, in that aspect. But he just comes across as very homophobic to me.
Yeah,
And
insecure.
his thinking that if you're in drag, your teammates would view you as gay, that just sits so poorly with me, because that doesn't mean you're gay, dude. Like,
And they
how
would
can you still
obviously,
be thinking that way? They probably would have thought it was funny and
yeah,
ribbed him a little bit for it, but I think his reaction to it and what he did was probably more damaging to him, the
yeah,
way they viewed him, because he comes across as like, why are you so homophobic? Why are you so worried about that?
exactly. That's what I was thinking the whole time too. I'm like, yeah, they would definitely would rip into you, like as basketball players. But like, have you seen Tyler Perry and Madea movies? Like, they're very popular.
Yeah.
You know, and then like the Black community, like they're gonna rip on you, and it's gonna be funny, but you just laugh about it and move on. The fact that he's so insecure about it says way more.
Is he
than
Black?
the event. Yes,
Yes,
he's
he
Black.
is.
He
Oh,
is.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I went to college with an athlete. I mean, he was a very important football player, and man, we went on spring break one year. We went to a gay club. He was always like making the most horrible homophobic remarks, like he had a mental breakdown because we wanted to go to a gay club, and we were always like, what is, like, why is he so like that? Guess what?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He came out
Yep.
a couple of years after we graduated from college.
Not
And that's
surprising.
why he was so just like anti-gay at the time. He was trying to hide it. And he thought all the hate he like vomited out would make everybody think he was straight. But his behavior made us question him. And then he was kind of forced to come out of the closet because he gave himself away. And that's how I kind of view this dude. Like, what is he hiding?
Yeah. Totally.
I also don't know basketball culture. That sounded so white, and so when I said that, like, I don't know
basketball culture.
I don't know really the culture that surrounds like basketball. I like hockey. I'm a hockey fan, and so I know
Pretty
more
white.
of
That's
that
pretty white.
aspect. Let me not.
I'm with you there, Regina, but I'm also Canadian, so.
But I like hockey a lot, but I also know this sort of taboo that goes around with the idea of gay players in the sport, and just sort of the attitudes that are sort of perpetuated, right? Like, you have to be a man to play this sport. You got to be tough. You got to play through injuries. You got to play through concussions. It's sort of almost like the culture that football has, and the way that it treats its players in a way, and the way that it's viewed as very masculine. I don't know if that those sort of ideals are perpetuated within the basketball world, and that could have led to Brandon's sort of view on things and his attitude on the show. It's very interesting too, because I was reading through like fan forums related to the episode, and they were discussing like why it was pulled. And I know one fan said like, I'm Black and he's Black, and it's just very sad to see him be so homophobic and leave this sort of bad impression for like our people.
Yeah,
You know,
for
because
sure.
absolutely, because I think they said, Black people sort of had this reputation that we're seen as homophobic and whatnot, and we're really not. And so it was really sad for that person to see. So yeah.
Yeah, like
All these ideas.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because what you said, like I would say it's more taboo in football culture than it is basketball culture because, basketball is predominantly black players and we have a history of just like, even though, that person might be a little, you still support them and, make sure they're okay. Like, so I'm sure he would have been, made fun of because that's just men in general. Like when a guy dresses up like a girl, like that's just what they're gonna do. But his just abhorrence towards this whole thing was just so disappointing because like, whoever that person said, like we already have to deal with that stigma and that stereotype in the black community of black people not being accepting, which is true, especially if you come through from smaller towns and smaller communities or whatever. But in general, we're still going to take care of you. We're still going to make sure you're okay. It's just his whole attitude was just disappointing. And like Kendra said, I'm just wondering, like, what are you covering up and why are you so against this? Unless it could have just been he just did not want to do this anyway because it was a punishment for him.
Yeah, so all of this is very interesting. The fact that this is happening around 2014 and trying to think back about the attitudes on LGBTQIA plus culture at that time. It's hard. I don't remember what 13, 14-year-old Regina thought at that point in time about the community. Where was I going with this? But viewing it anachronistically, of course, with all the knowledge that we have now, it makes for very interesting conversation. I lost the point that I was going to make, but I'll probably get it back in a second. Hold on.
No, like I grew up around basketball. My dad was actually being recruited for the NBA. Like I grew up around basketball players, and like I would hear all the time, like, he might be a little sissy. Pardon my term. That's what they said. But he can play ball, so we don't care. Like it's just so I'm just so confused. Like
Yeah,
where he got.
Matt worked for the NBA for over a decade, and through his work, we became friends with many NBA players, and they would still kind of make comments like that, but like one of their brothers is gay and the whole team was like really supportive and went to Pride that year to support his brother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was just nothing. It didn't matter to them. They just make funny comments. They were always really supportive of each other. I never got any sense that there was any homophobia that existed. Of course, I'm not in the locker room with them,
Right, but
but
yeah,
if they were truly homophobic and had hate for the gay culture or, homosexuality, I think it would have came out just, it just would have.
yeah.
So
I just
I've
feel like it's
never
more
viewed the
prevalent in
NBA that
football than
way.
basketball.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this is a great episode. Like this was a great talk. I was not expecting this. I was not expecting this to be like part of the lawsuit or whatever. Wow.
And see, like, he played for the development team that existed here twice. And Matt does know some people. Of course, they were in Tulsa then when he played for them. They've moved here to the city. I don't know that they were bought out. When we acquired the Thunder, they were bought out so we could move them here because it just made more sense to have our development team in the same city as our NBA team. But Matt knows quite a few people who work for the development league. I don't know if any of them worked for the 66ers though. All those years ago, I don't think so. So I don't think I can dig up any dirt. If I'll ask.
Yeah, have you
They're gonna
mentioned
be
it
like,
to your husband? Does he?
I haven't yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
I would
he's not
love to know
here
what he.
right now. but I'm gonna ask him, do any of the people you know that work for the Blue, did they work for the development team when they were in Tulsa? That was so many years ago, though. I don't think any of the old people are still around. The turnover is pretty steep in that area.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. I was going to cite how it's interesting that this episode aired in 2014, and we see Bianca and her blushing bride to be sort of discuss about how gay marriage is more acceptable from where he's from in Holland versus how things are a little slow to get here. And I thought about because my poli-sci brain had to think about it, the landmark case that lifted the bans on certain states for gay marriage and kind of like made it legal in all 50 states, Obergefell v. Hodges. I thought it was very interesting to view that and see what was going on around that time, and how even with the mini challenge really playing into this idea of marriage equality. I thought it was a very interesting episode, and how this ties to certain views within the community, that as we've gotten to talk about it at length with Brandon's remarks and whatnot. So it was nice to revisit this episode in a way. Bittersweet, really, because I cringed through a lot of the episode, but it was very helpful to look back on and see how much we've progressed throughout the years, and really just get to discuss at length about things.
This is off topic, but I sent the screenshot of his after picture next to the female gremlin to my mother, and she is just cracking up right now.
Oh my god, no!
That's my
love that
favorite
movie.
part.
We love that movie, and I have it scheduled for New Year's Eve if you guys want to join me to watch that one, because it's in New York. Anyway, but she is just like, she's been texting me for 5 minutes straight laughing at that.
I was wondering if anybody was going to put that on, because if they didn't around the holidays, I would, because I love that. That's like one of my favorite Christmas
Me
time
too.
movies.
I do have to share with you, Regina and Elle, my favorite part was the reference to Detox and Sharon Needles, because now I have watched everything RuPaul Drag Race that I have available to me, and they are two of my favorite queens. So I love that reference. I know it doesn't mean much to anybody who hasn't watched it, but yes, I loved that they mentioned them.
I love that.
I love their style.
Love both of them so much.
I liked putting together the document and being able to put those visual references in, because I feel like there's a lot of those things that happen when we watch these episodes, and a lot of these either references to other pop culture things or things from the show that people who haven't watched anything else wouldn't get. So I liked putting this together to be like, hey, here's, now you can actually see what they're referring to. So I thought I pulled some good images from like the comparisons and the picture of Detox, especially because I felt like the dress that Darian put together for Androgyny was very Detox.
Oh, heck yes. Your references were perfect.
Hey everyone, I'm gonna actually head out, but thank you again, Al, Regina, for putting this together. That was a really awesome. It was a really awesome recap and way to experience the show. I'm gonna take a look at that PDF a little bit later. I'm heading out. Thanks everybody for a great evening, and I will see you in the Discords.
Bye.
Night,
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Night.
Night.